What's up, bud? It's Rob. This is Apparel Success. And if you don't know who I am, I run a Canadian clothing brand called K-Bud that's doing well into the six figures in sales. So I help clothing brands like yours get really good results. And in this video here, I want to share with you 3 really well executed clothing brand concepts and break them down for you, the characteristics and qualities of what makes these brand concepts so good, what makes them work so well, and why I believe that they became so successful, so that you can get a really good glimpse into how to create a powerful brand concept for your own brand that sells like fire. So I hope you enjoy. Apparel Success is sponsored by my buds over at Design Crowd. And if designs are something that you're just not that good at, I really recommend that you give them a shot. These are some of the best-selling designs on my website, and I got them all made through Design Crowd. If you're interested, head over to designcrowd.com/apparel to learn about the special offer that I have for you, or simply use the discount code APPAREL when you post a project on Design Crowd. All right, so if you've watched any of the other videos on my channel, you probably already know that your brand concept for your clothing brand is one of the key components to the foundation of your brand. And I'd honestly say that it's probably the most important component for your clothing brand to figure out and master. And the foundation of your clothing brand is 4 components. You've got your brand concept. What's your brand all about? Getting really clear on that, really specific about that, and expressing that consistent brand concept to your audience so that people aren't confused. That's one of the core components of your foundation. Then there's your website quality, your product quality, and your social media presentation. But in this video here, I really want to dive into your brand concept. I think that this is a really important thing to just flush out and go as deep as humanly possible into. So I'm going to share with you 3 brand concepts, 3 brands that I think really pulled this off well, why they worked really well. And I think that this is really going to allow you to see what a really good brand concept looks like through 3 different brands that exist and that have sold millions of dollars worth of products. So let's jump right into it. The first one that I want to talk about here is Lululemon. And the reason why Lululemon's brand concept is so awesome and why they're so impressive is because they started out as a really niche brand and have branched out and broadened to the bigger market in a very impressive way. When they first started up their clothing brand, they were a yoga-inspired brand for women only. And that was their niche. And this is why I talk a lot on this channel about how you want to start out your brand concept being really niched, like however niched you think your brand concept is, niche it down even further and get really specific on it, because that's how you're going to be able to cut through and connect and be really powerful at the beginning. And then once you start to dominate that niche, you can broaden out and become, a much more broad brand concept. And that's exactly what Lululemon did. They started out being a yoga-inspired women's brand where they were basically just making yoga clothes for women, and they just dominated that space. They became the go-to space for basically all women into yoga. Once they just mastered that space and they crushed that space and dominated it, then they started branching out into more athletic gear, more gym wear. They started making a whole men's collection. Now they do men's shorts, men's bathing suits, and they've just broadened to become a general, really sort of medium high-end clothing store that's, a probably billion-dollar brand at this point. So that's a really impressive brand concept that, is worth thinking about deeper than just, it's Lululemon. How they started was starting really specific, and they ended up broadening, and they did that beautifully. I tend to think that brands are most impressive in their beginning stages, then as they evolve and broaden and become general brands. And the reason for that is because when you first start up your brand in the early stages, you're trying to assert yourself in a market that is already saturated with clothing brands who have been at this for a long time. And they've had the years to pile on brand history, to gain repeat customers, to build loyalty, to build trust. And trying to assert yourself in that market, it forces you to have to really get super specific on your brand concept, get really potent in terms of who you're going after so that you can connect with them deeper than all these brands who have already been existing for all this time. And that's why I think Lululemon did a sick job at that. Another really impressive clothing brand that you've probably heard of that I think is a really great case study for this video is Gymshark. And one of the reasons why I think that this is such a great brand to bring up in this video is because I know that a lot of people watching these videos are trying to start gym wear brands or fitness brands. And I think that the fitness space for clothing is probably the most competitive subcategory of the apparel industry. There are just so many people trying to start up gym wear brands. And the reason why I want to talk about Gymshark here is because Gymshark came in and just started dominating that whole space out of nowhere. And you're probably wondering exactly how they did that and separated themselves to become this billion-dollar brand, right? They don't have too much unique stuff going on. It's not like they've got a million different proprietary products that have their own special twist on things, but it's just purely built on brand itself. And the most impressive part about what Gymshark did to really become super successful is they really leveraged YouTube influencers. So, even back in the day, I used to watch Hodge Twins and all these people who were creating, videos on the internet that were showing you how to lose weight, how to get in shape. And I was that dude who was like obsessively watching all these videos on how to get in shape. And I noticed like all these different influencers on YouTube, all these different fitness people were all sponsored by Gymshark. They were all wearing Gymshark. So Gymshark had the foresight to basically look and say, okay, everybody's going to YouTube to learn about fitness. Let's just sponsor basically every single YouTube channel that exists. And if we get out there on these YouTube channels, it's probably going to save us some money in marketing. And we're going to be able to get in front of millions and millions of people through people who are already credible, who people are looking up to. So I think that they did an amazing job at creating a brand through different YouTube influencers. It's a really creative way to do it, and they just executed on that perfectly. So I think Gymshark's a great example of a brand that doesn't really have anything special going on in terms of its products and being different from the rest of the products in the marketplace. But at the same time, managed to stand out and be completely different in the eyes of the consumers. And isn't that all that kind of really matters, right? They created a different image, a different feel around their brand based on who they were associated with, which was YouTube influencers that everybody was looking up to. And it created this huge uprise in their brand and allowed them to become really successful. So I think that that's super impressive. And the last brand concept that I want to talk about here that's really a throwback for me. I used to wear them a lot in high school, back when I was in the skateboarding community. And before I get into this, I just want to ask you, if you're getting a lot of value out of this video, please hit the like button for me. It really helps me get these videos out there. But the last brand concept that I want to talk about here is Element. You'll probably only really know about the brand Element. It's a skateboarding brand if you were inside of the skateboarding subculture, although I do believe that this brand really became big enough that most people who hear that name probably understand it. But the reason why I want to bring up this brand is also because I know a lot of people who watch this channel are into streetwear, skateboarding, and they want to sort of create a brand around skateboarding or streetwear and things like that. And, in a space like skateboarding, where especially back in the 90s and the early 2000s, there were a ton of clothing brands that started up around skateboarding. Girl, Alien Workshop, Blind, all these sick brands that were all competing against one another. And Element was just like a standout brand that sold way more than most of the other brands. And that's because they associated themselves with a guy named Bam Margera, who I'm sure you've heard of, that is like one of the biggest names from back in skateboarding in the early 2000s. He's part of the Jackass movies, or was a part of the Jackass movies. And his whole brand really helped take Element to a whole other level. And this is an example of a brand concept that is specific in skateboarding. So they're not trying to appeal to basketball players or hockey players or any other niche. They know that they're a skateboarding brand, and then they decided to dominate that whole industry, the whole skateboarding subculture, by being associated with the biggest name in skateboarding at the time, who was Bam Margera and Bam Margera's whole team. And so the one thing that I really want you to just take away from this video and apply to your own clothing brand is that all of these clothing brands that I've mentioned, Gymshark, Lululemon, and Element, they have a specific category of people that they either started in or they're still in that they're going after, and it's a really specific niche that they're going after. And just a consequence of doing this, of picking a niche and going after a niche, is that you're going to be excluding another group of people. The rest of the world is being excluded from your clothing brand. They're not inside of your market. You're not trying to sell to them. And that's a good thing. It sounds like a bad thing intuitively, but it's actually a good thing, because you can't just appeal to everybody. If you try to appeal to the whole world, you're going to appeal to 0 people inside of the whole world. So you have to get specific on a brand concept and specific on a niche, and a consequence of doing that is that a huge part of the world is not going to be perfect for your brand. But there will be a group of people that are perfect for your brand. And those are the people that you're making your clothing for. And because you're specific to them, now you have an identity, you have a consistency around your message that's going to appeal to those people deeper than just some random brand concept that you can find at Walmart that's just sitting on the shelf there. And it can take time for you to hone your brand concept in and really get it to the point where it's making sense to people. And it can also take time for other people to really jump on board and understand what your brand concept's all about. There's a great quote by Mac Miller in the song Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza where he says, "About to be in music stores everywhere but not yet. They can't understand my concept."
About to be in music stores everywhere but not yet. They can't understand my concept.
And this is basically right when he was starting up his whole rap career. Like, he was actually telling the truth there. He was saying, I'm about to blow up. I know that I've got something good here, but people just can't quite understand what I'm all about yet. And when they do, it's really going to take off. And I think that that's a lot of clothing brands out there. You know, you're just trying to get it so that people can really understand your whole concept, understand what you're all about. And when they do, it starts to kind of grow on itself, and the concept almost gets taken over by your audience, and you can sort of build your brand with your audience at the same time, by getting feedback, by sort of listening to your audience, understanding what they want so that you can create better and better products that are right for them. Like I said earlier, if you got a lot of value out of this video, hit the like button for me. It really helps me get these videos out there, and let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. And if you haven't already, check out my free clothing brand marketing masterclass. All you have to do to get access is go to apparelsuccess.com/masterclass, and you can watch the whole thing for free. And if you made it to this point in the video, I want to tell you about the closed Facebook group that we have with Apparel Success. Link in the description. Follow that link. Join us in the group, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.